weight, addiction, or obsession? That's today's topic on Meema Make Living Healthy. If you're interested, stay tuned. Hello. Well, as I said in my intro, today's topic is weight, addiction, or obsession. I'll get into that topic in just a few minutes, but first of all, I want to share with you my weekly Weight Watcher weigh-in, which I did today. I'll go back to last week's weigh-in. On August the 1st, I weighed in at 124.8 pounds. And I was okay with that. I had lost a pound. I was under my 125 pounds, which is the high point of my happy weight. And I kept the weight gain or loss to a pound, so I was happy. That's what I have to do nowadays, being in maintenance. So over the weekend, I had a rough weekend. I didn't concentrate on what I was eating. So I ate way too much. And when I got on the scale Monday, I was up not 2 pounds, but awfully close to 2 pounds. So I decided that I was going to try, as I do each week when I overeat on the weekends, to get the weight gain back under control. And the way that I do that is I concentrate on what I'm eating better. I try very hard to keep my portion sizes in the right size, because that's where I have a tendency to go off the rail nowadays, is I eat too much. I'm still not eating wrong things. I'm just eating too much of the good things. So anyway, that's what I did the first of this week. And so when I got on the scale this morning, I was still expecting a gain, but for me, I was happy with it because I weighed in at 125.2. 0.2 means I only gained 0.4 of a pound this week. I'm very happy with that. I have to be happy with that. When I have an out-of-control weekend, like I did last weekend, for me to be able to say I only gained less than 0.5 pound, I'm very happy with that. No, I would have liked to have actually lost just a little bit more instead of gained, but when I say things like I want to keep the gain or loss around 1 pound or less, then I have to be happy when I do that. That's something I think all of us need to understand, that sometimes, especially when you're in maintenance, weight gain is going to happen. I mean, you can't keep losing weight or you would dry up and be nothing. So I'm okay with this week's weigh-in. Hopefully I can get back under 125 next week, but if not, let's hope that I don't weigh much over 126. All right, I want to go into my topic for this week, which is a serious topic for me. It's something I have prayed about sharing with you because I don't think I've ever shared some of what I'm about to share. But my topic today is weight, addiction, or obsession. And what brought this to my mind was over the last 10 years since I've been on Weight Watchers, I have been told more than once that I obsess about my weight, that that's all I ever think about, that that's all I ever talk about. And so I really wanted to go into why I think that is not necessarily a bad behavior. Because if you look at me today at 125.2, I look a lot different than I did 10 years ago at 213 pounds. That's what those two pictures that were on my thumbnail represent. The first one The one where I'm obviously overweight was taken the very first day I joined Weight Watchers. And then the second one was taken this morning. And I just really wanted to show you the difference between what 215 pounds looks like and what 125.2 looks like. Because I can say it all I want to, but unless you see a visual of it, that helps me more than anything. But what I'm about to share now is my addiction. Now, being overweight is not the only addiction that I have suffered from in my life. I have mentioned several times in previous videos that when I was a young adult in my 20s and 30s, I really was not much more than just overweight. I was somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 to 25 pounds overweight, and it was not in the obese range yet. And that happened later as I got older. Well, some of the factors of why that happened, I think some of it's hormonal, but I think a big portion of it was when I was in my 20s and 30s, I was a smoker. I was addicted to nicotine. I'm not proud of that fact, but you know, it's part of my life. And just like I always say, I'm going to tell you the part of my life, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. And my nicotine addiction is ugly. And that's the only thing that I can say about it. And here's another part that's probably even worse, is I was able to get off of cigarettes in 1992. And within about 5 to 7 years, I was back on them. And I really did have a very low opinion of myself during those last 8 years that I had started back and was smoking again. But some of the reason that happened is, yes, I was going through some stressful periods in my life, but I think it was because I began to gain weight. In my late 30s, I began to see myself getting heavier and heavier to where I wasn't just overweight anymore. I was beginning to be at the low end of being obese because I was around 175 to 180 pounds and I couldn't get under that 175. And for much of my younger adulthood, I was between 155 and 165. So I was okay with it. I was still in a size 14, you know, I wasn't in women's clothing yet, but by the time the late 90s rolled around, I was in 16s, 18s, and I found myself getting heavier and heavier and not able to get the weight off. So I'm not justifying why I started back smoking. I'm just telling you I did. And I sort of made allowances for it because once I started back, I never smoked as much as I did the first 15 years that I was smoking, because I probably was close to a 2-pack a day smoker when I was in my 20s and 30s. And when I started back, I was mainly, I guess the most I smoked was close to a pack a day, but I was still smoking. I was just fooling myself. I was just as addicted to nicotine when I started back as I was those other 15 to 20 years before I quit the first time. And it was such a monkey on my back. And as I got a little older and found myself in my 50s, I began to realize that nicotine was not an appetite suppressant like it had been when I was younger. I was still gaining weight. It was not stopping anymore. And here I was, a hermit in my own house. I would not get out because I didn't want people to know that I had started back smoking. And so it was just really a very unhealthy period for me. I had lost my mother and I had a lot of guilt over her death, and it was unfounded guilt, but I still had it. And anyway, I can't make this long story short. But finally, in 2007, I put down cigarettes for what I hope and pray is the last time in my life. And all I can do is be diligent about not getting that addiction back. Now, why have I shared all this with y'all? Because when I put the cigarettes down for the second time, my weight sort of exploded. Because I went from somewhere around 180 to 185 pounds, and before I knew it, I was over 210 pounds. I believe probably the heaviest I ever got was around 220, but I was not getting on the scale. The heaviest I ever remember weighing, and it was before I started Weight Watchers, was 215 pounds. And that was not when I started Weight Watchers. It was a year or so before, and I backed down from the way that I was eating and lost some of it, but then I would gain it back. It was just a vicious cycle. And so in January of 2014, when I started Weight Watchers, I weighed 213 pounds. Now I sit before you today at 125.2. So now I'm going to talk about this other addiction that I believe I had just as bad as the nicotine addiction. And that was an addiction to food. Now, yes, we all have to eat. We can't get away from that fact. But there are the right ways and the wrong ways to eat. There are foods that are so high in fat and carbohydrates and sugar, there's no way that you're not going to put some weight on, or at least me. I know if I continued to eat these foods that I was eating for so many years, I would continue to be the size I am. And not only did I have to focus on getting some of those heavy sugar, heavy carbs, heavy fat foods out of my life, I also really had to focus on my portion size, because that's where I feel like that I missed the boat. Is I can still occasionally have some of these high sugar, high carb foods, but I always have to do it in moderation, because I will gain weight. And I can't speak for you, but I know what I will do. And so all those years where I was overeating and eating the wrong kinds of foods was an addiction for me. I was addicted to those foods, especially sugar. I think that probably was one of my worst addictions, because I still, if I am not careful and diligent, I will get addicted to it again. But that was my addiction. And I faced the facts, because here I was addicted to cigarettes for so many years, and it was affecting the way that I breathe, the way that I talk. I mean, I have a gravel in my voice that I didn't have for the first 30, 40 years of my life, that I will have the rest of my life because of those cigarettes. Same thing with my addiction to food. I will carry damage to my joints, from my waist down especially, for the rest of my life because of being overweight, obese, and morbidly obese. And so today, yes, I may be a little obsessed with what I eat, but I was obsessed with what I ate before I ever started Weight Watchers. I would, in the morning, wake up thinking about what I was going to eat for breakfast. While I was eating breakfast, I'd be thinking about what I was going to fix and eat for lunch. And then before I ever started lunch, I would be concentrating on what I was going to cook for supper and what I was going to eat in my afternoon and midnight snack, you know, all that kind of stuff. And that was being obsessed. I really, truly classify that as obsession. Not just addiction, but obsession. And now, if you want to call what I do now being obsessed, then go ahead and call it. Because for 30 minutes every day, when I first get up, I try my best to plan what I'm going to eat for the day. Now, I'm not always successful. Sometimes I have to go back and change things. I mean, that's just life. But instead of obsessing on food all day long, I obsess about it for about 30 minutes each day. And to me, that's a wonderful obsession. If I can stay in a healthy weight range, that obsession is worth it because I am no longer addicted to food, just like I'm no longer addicted to nicotine. I'm no longer addicted to food. It is not on my mind 24/7. It's on my mind to eat so that I don't get so hungry that I overdo it. And I want you to share with me, have you ever been so obsessed with something that you would consider it an addiction? Because I know that many of us have. It's something that I've had to deal with not once, but 2 or 3 times in my lifetime. And praise God, I'm trying each day. I go to Him to ask for strength each and every day to get through the day and be successful in how I eat, to be successful that I do not pick up cigarettes again. And I really try my very best to never even think about cigarettes. I don't talk about them very often because they are in my past, hopefully not in my future. So comment below if you've had that addiction and what you did with it. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not. Share it if you think it would help anybody else. And most of all, turn your obsession into a healthy one, into one that you can live with because you'll be in a healthy weight range. God bless each and every one of you for this upcoming week. Until next time, goodbye.